Hi, and welcome to this AI C# weekly summary on week 49 of 2025. So, as always, we go to news, releases, videos, and your questions and comments. So, not much news this week. There was a little at the end with a new version of Grok, but I haven't tried it, so I didn't put it in here. The main thing is that many news outlets reported that OpenAI is falling behind and had a code red internally about delaying some things in order to get some more intelligent models out there. I don't really care for too much rumors and such things, but it sounds like it will actually end up resulting in that we get some new OpenAI models fairly soon, probably next week. And that is always nice for us to get new models that are more intelligent, that they probably wouldn't have released at this time had it not been for the others pressuring them. So let's see what happens. In terms of new releases, the Agent Framework pushed out a new release late this week, the 2025-1204 version. It was mostly bug fixes and samples, like it has been in the past couple of weeks. There was one breaking change that affected me, which was around instructions. So when you make an agent and you use the chat client agent options, you could previously set instructions on that. Now you need to set those instructions inside the sub-object of that called chat options. A bit annoying, but if you use the framework toolkit, you won't notice. And speaking of the framework toolkit, there was two new releases. The first one being in the early part of this week, where we added support for Azure OpenAI RBAC, so role-based access control. So before that, you could only access it with an API key. Now you can also use the Azure default credentials, Azure CLI credentials, or the ones you need in order to not have a passwordless version of it. Beyond that, it was just internal code quality optimizations. I added treat warnings as errors, and it is a config, which is something I normally do with all my projects once they are beginning to be a bit more mature. And then I moved all the to-dos in the code out in GitHub issues, so you can also see them, help with them if you wish to. And so go check them out. In terms of new videos, there was the 5 videos as before. It's kind of hard, I must admit, to keep up with 5 videos every week. So I might scale it down at some point, but so far let's go with the 5 videos. So Monday we released a video about the Durable Agents framework, where you can set up the agents to run to do agents from Agent Framework without you needing to make your own HTTP trigger and such. Kind of okay system, a bit hard to get running, but then it works. Then there was a really interesting thing about user memory. There's something called the AI Context Provider inside the Agent Framework, and in there you can essentially have pre-hooks and post-hooks before and after the LLM is actually called. So we can put in user facts and stuff. So a really cool video to check out if you haven't. Then Wednesday and Friday, I went into some audio options. Wednesday was text-to-speech generation, so you can take a piece of text and turn it into speech. And Friday was the other way around, where you speak and get it turned into text. Both of them are not using Agent Framework as such, but are still something you can leverage together with Agent Framework. And Thursday was a small video about tool calling and service injection. So if you have dependency injection inside your tools in your tool calling, It can sometimes be a bit hard to set them up, but with this small tweak, it's easier to work with them. Next week, by the way, is actually gonna be all about the Microsoft Foundry. I'm starting a little mini-series on that, so most of the videos will be on that. So if you really like the Microsoft Foundry, then stay tuned, and if not, you might have a bye week without needing to see the videos, but because next week will be all about the Foundry. Also next week, remember that there are the monthly live streams. We had it last month, and we made it into a monthly thing. So next week on Wednesday, there will be a stream at 8 o'clock CET in Europe. So late evening in Asia. And we will also have one at 4 o'clock on Wednesday, European time, which means early morning over in the Americas. I put out a poll about when live streams should happen, and I asked if it should be on these Wednesdays or in the weekends. And that poll ended up being a complete tie, so we ended up with a bonus stream, and where we try to actually run on a Wednesday or a Saturday week bonus stream. So I will run that at the 12th at 21 CET, so that is midday in US and very early in Asia. But and based on these on the stats of these videos, I will figure out if the weekend is a better place to put these live streams or not. Again, being a tie poll, I didn't get the final verdict there. So we will try with actually 3 streams, roughly 1 hour each in duration. You will be able to ask questions, and you will actually also be able to join me on voice if you wish to. But go to the page normally and make notifications on it, so you know that you can join. Finally, rest of this video, we will talk a little about the normal comments, questions, and contributions. This one is actually something I would really like your opinion on in the comments if you wish to, because certain people see the videos on mobile. It's like 17% of you. But if I were to have all the videos work good on mobile as well, I need to increase the zoom level of the code to much higher than the 130% I do right now. I don't think even 150 would help too much on a mobile. So right now I have said, okay, this is tablet and higher, and the content is fit for that. But if I'm misunderstanding you and you really want it in even more zoomed level, I'm afraid of zooming more because then it will hurt the overall understanding when you look at a large device. But if there's any good ideas on how to do that, please put them in the comments so I can adjust if need be. Then there was a question around the Azure functions and if they would work in AWS and Google Cloud Platform, which have similar things to the Azure functions. This durable agent framework is specifically from Microsoft and for the Azure functions. So no, they will not work that way. So you need to build it more on your own up in AWS or Google Cloud Platform. There was also some questions about, or comments more about the user memory in general. Many people like the user memory video and asked about how the data could be stored, and if I'm gonna show some videos about the Mem0 and the other implementations. I use the custom implementation because I tend to like more custom solutions where I have full control. But I will at some point make some videos about the Mem0 version of it as well. Then there was a really good question of an older video. This was about the RAG introduction, where whenever I preloaded some of the RAG data, I put them in as individual chat messages in that. So you should go back and see that video if you're unfamiliar. But I put them in as chat messages instead of just piling on a big output text of a RAG search. And the user here gave an excellent why did I do that, and as such there was not a specific reason. I just felt it was more easy to understand that I actually gave it 100 pieces of information or 25 pieces of information, but it could have just been a CSV-like structure, a tune-like structure, a XML-like structure in one big go in a chat message with all the data. So there was no specific reason. It's not like it's better or worse as such. It might even use a bit too many tokens. But so there was an excellent question, and again, it's not because there was a specific reason as such. And that is everything for this week. See you in the next one.